some statistics and some data to start with. And then we're going to talk about what is the home buying process? What does it take? What are things that we need to consider? And that way you have all the information. So one of the things that I'm most passionate about and that you're going to see here is understanding that there's such a gap in wealth, and how do we fix that gap? Now, if you look at this here, you can see there's a big gap between wealth between homeowners and renters. I love data and stats because it tells the truth. So if we look here, we see kind of where we're at, and actually I need to update this to 23. It's even more so. We could see that the homeowners, which is green, if you're a homeowner, you have more wealth than you do when you're renting. And we're going to talk about why is that? What's included in that? What are things that we need to consider to look at in order to establish how that is happening? So if you look over here to the right, you're going to see here, as we dive in later, you're going to understand more of it. But if you're renting, and let's just say you're somebody paying $27.50 a month for rent, you could see just in 48 months how much money you are spending in rent, right? So you're paying your landlord's mortgage, which for people like me that have investment properties, I'm happy about that, but it doesn't help you build wealth. So when we look at why there's such a big gap, that's why, because when you're paying rent, you have no return on that investment other than you do have shelter for that month that you're paying it, but there's no added return. Versus if you own a home, not only are you investing into something that is giving you a return, and we're going to talk about appreciation and equity and things like that on our call today, but it also is going to be paying down your loan balance, which is your principal, which is going to be the equity that you own, which is your wealth that you're creating. So that's why there's such a big gap and disparity when we look between renters and homeowners and see what the wealth percentage is in there. When you own a home, there's so many advantages that you get to look at that we're going to look over today. Financially, we know all of the reasonings as far as personal reasons, but we're also going to be looking and addressing those. Like, what are the financial reasons? We know we want to own a home, we want our own space, we want to color the walls, we want pets is a big one, right? Like, trying to move if you're renting and you have pets is terrible, or have kids and rooms and decorating. So we know all the personal reasons that we buy, but financially, how do we get to retirement? The average American is only going to be able to retire and feel comfortable in retirement if they've invested in real estate for a length amount of time. So the sooner that you can get into investing in real estate, the sooner that you're going to have the opportunity to have a okay retirement. I don't know if anybody's looked into Social Security lately, but it's not enough to live on. It's actually really sad. I had a couple that are both on Social Security, and even together, they can't qualify to purchase a home. So definitely not something that you want to, bank on for retirement. But there's so many different things that you have when it comes to financial benefits in real estate. And we're going to talk about there's, tax benefits. There may be some additional, you got your appreciation, you're paying your loan balance. All of those are things that we're going to look at today and go deeper into talking about each of those. So it seems like we have mainly first-time home buyers. So yeah, drop it in the chat. Let me know if you've owned before, if you're first time, if you haven't, so we can talk about it. Now, I love talking about stories because I think that seeing success stories and really looking at people is what shows us that it can be done and how it's done. I remember when you're talking about these clients, and I've been doing it for so long, I have many of these success stories. But for instance, this one here, we're just going to briefly talk through. So Sarah purchased a home 15 years ago. So she purchased it in 2009. She bought it for $300,000. At the time, interest rates were 4%. She only had to put 3% down. And so she has been in that property now, and the original purchase price was $300,000. Well, home value appreciation, when she bought that home to now, as you can see here, is $735,000. And her mortgage balance now is paid down to only $165,000. So that means that she has $570,000 in equity. That's her actual, if she were to sell the property, that's how much is hers that she can use as her equity in the home, which is part of her net worth, right? So in the 15 years, she had $570,000 return on her investment of owning a home. So if you look at investing in anything else, there's no greater return that you're going to have outside of investment, and it's a roof over your head too, in addition to that. So looking at the data and the stats and numbers is really important when we're looking at, does it make sense? Because let's be honest, it's really difficult and it's really stressful and it's really challenging to go from renting a place to now owning a home. It's exciting and it's amazing, but it's also a big commitment, especially because you're going to have to pay more to invest in something that's going to give you a return versus renting that's not. So we know that there's going to be that investment that we have to make, which means we need to be able to understand it and wrap our mind around it to where it makes sense that we're willing to take that risk. Because just like anything in life, it's really how much risk are we willing to take? How much are we willing to take? And for me, especially, I like to know the data. Like, I'm willing to take a risk if I'm pretty good understanding of what the return is going to be. And I see the facts and the data around it, which is what we're going to look at today too. So what kept you guys from buying a home? For you that are first time home buyers here, drop it in the chat. What has been the biggest concern, frustration, or reason that's held you back from purchasing? I always like to know what that is. So this is just some basic numbers that we're looking through, and that's, basic of if I purchase a home at 600,000 versus renting, right? So you probably have seen, everyone say rent versus own, and really digging into it's important because there's a lot of different factors than just here's the payment to payment. Because of course we know that rent has increased and will continue to increase, so we know that's going up. But you could probably find somewhere to rent that's going to be cheaper than owning a home with where we are today, with home prices still elevated because there's low inventory and the interest rates are still more elevated, although they're expected to come down in the future, which we're going to talk about. But you also got to consider, like we had talked about, amortization gain, which is how much you pay down in your loan balance. So when you make your mortgage payment, part of that is paying down your balance, which is your money, versus rent. You don't get any return on that. And the same with appreciation. How much your home goes up each year and over time is your equity in the home. So when we're looking on return on investment, we have to take in consideration all of those things. We also have to take into consideration that when I want to sell my home, I'm going to have to pay fees to sell the home. I'm also going to have maintenance repairs. So just like home repair, just like you have on here, yes, you have to take into effect that you can't call somebody to make repairs. If something goes wrong, you need to make sure you have an emergency fund and a contingency that you can make those repairs. But you also got to look at the fact that you may be able to deduct those as a write-off on your property taxes too. So although they're an expense, you can write off a lot of the stuff, which outweighs that expense too, which we're going to talk more about as well. So it's looking at all angles when we're looking at all the information here. Yeah, you can buy a home warranty, which is a 1-year warranty for the first year, but you can continue it every year after. We have it on our rental properties, especially because if something goes wrong that's covered in there, you can pay, $50 to $100 trip fee for them to repair whatever's on there versus a big deductible on your insurance. So definitely as a first-time home buyer, you want to have a home warranty. And we go over all that too when you're looking to purchase. But let's talk about appreciation. I think this is important to look at. And I think it's really important to understand the numbers and the data. And we are going to be talking about the process, what it takes, and the very basic step-by-step guide. I just want to have your mindset around what it looks like to purchase a home and why you want to, really consider taking on the risk for the investment and the return on the investment. There's a huge opportunity in this market if you understand the market, understand the direction that's going, and are able to find a way to afford the home to purchase right now. So appreciation is simply how much your home goes up over time. And so this here is not my numbers. This comes from all of the higher, smarter people that look at all the data, the stats, and all the information and say, here's what we think. There's 7 of them that come together and say, this is what we think. And they're all kind of within a realm. And they've been pretty right on. I mean, actually, we appreciated more last year, over 6% nationally was higher than what they thought that we were. So if we look at the appreciation over here on the left, you can see what's forecasted and historical would have been on this property. Forecasted was 5.4. Historical has been 5.15% appreciation. So this shows you a chart of each year. If you were to purchase a home at 500,000 based on historical and forecasted, where your home appreciation is going to go over time. Now I can already hear it because I've been doing this a long time that I can hear, like, okay, Kristen, there's no way that property values are going to sustain. How many of you are already thinking that? There's no way property values are going to sustain. I don't believe it. That just doesn't seem like it's going to be okay and that it's going to be right and that people, houses can go up that high. Let's look at the data, right? Because if everything, in life is a decision and we make decisions based on the information that we have and the facts and the data, right? This is actual data that shows a couple things. Look to the left here. So if we look to the left here, it shows the inventory. We are at a shortage of inventory. What that means is there's not enough homes to fulfill the demand of the housing that's needed. There's a lot more that goes into this, which we can go deeper on another call, that goes into birth rates and all of that take into account why we need so much more housing. But to give you an example, if we look back in 2007, which that's what most people are scared of, right? The housing crash. Like, no, property values can't go high. We're going to have a crash. Well, let's look at what that even looks like. You can see the inventory, which is the orange here. The inventory back before the crash was at an all-time high, meaning we had way too many properties at that time. Versus now, you could see where our inventory is versus the demand. So you can see here, we don't even have enough inventory to sustain how many people are looking to purchase. How long would it take for 3 million more properties to be built? So we would have to drastically find more land, build higher. I mean, there's so much would have to happen in order for us to have enough inventory to be able to sustain the need that's needed. But if you look at the graph here, which is what I love, what I want you to see on the graph is these are all of the years and the percentage of change of the housing. Why is this so important? Well, if everything in life is based on data, risks, assessments, and what is the likelihood of something happening, you can see here the red is the only years that housing declined. Now, it was a big one when it crashed, which is why we have so much PTSD around housing prices and are they going to crash? But if I were a betting person, would you bet on the green or would you bet on the red? It's pretty remarkable when you look at the stats and the data and the numbers and you really look at it and see where the numbers are and where we're heading. So is it likely that housing can sustain itself when we have low inventory, we have affordability, which we're going to talk about, and 76 of all of these 80 something times, it was green, it was up. I would bet on the green, and I bet most of you would bet on the green as well. So it's important to look at the data and see where are we going, what's going on, and what's happened. Because if we look at the forecasting and what's happened, you can see in the housing forecast for last 2002 was 5.5. It came in at 6. And then for 2023, it was 6.57. Now they're forecasting still 4.5% to 5%, which is good. We don't want it to be a high appreciation beyond that, really, because that's not good for sustainability. So it's good that we're starting to get back to a normal reasoning amount of appreciation, because we want to look at what is the wealth creation and the return on investment. And that's all around leveraging, meaning if you were to purchase a home, and let's say you invested $56,000 into this purchase for out of pocket. If you're doing that and you have a 5% appreciation, that's $40,000 or $40,000 in profit, which is a 71% return on investment. You can't make that return on investment anywhere else, not in your 401k. I mean, even if you're an amazing like Ray Dalio and you know how to invest, the likelihood outside of real estate that you're going to be able to find a return on that investment is very, very slim. And so Warren Buffett, and you probably know who he is. I like putting this in here. I would go in. I thought I had the link on here. I don't. I would go research him and look at this video. And why I love this video is that he talks about real estate being where he invests money and where he would tell anyone right now, even with rates being elevated, the opportunity in investing in real estate. Now, this is one of the biggest investors that understands money that's saying, yes, I would have a 30-year mortgage where rates are right now and purchase real estate. So understanding that the higher upper investors, the people that understand money, that understand the market, are investing in real estate, it hedges inflation, which means it's the only way that you're going to continue to make money on your money and not lose money. And so understanding that really just puts you in the right mindset to understand, okay, it's not a matter of should I buy, it's a matter of when is the right time for me to buy, so that I can position myself to be in that, because I don't think everybody's in a position to buy. I think that some people, there's still things that need to be worked on in order to be in a position to be comfortable to purchase. But I think it's really important for you to take the drive and take the commitment and the accountability to start making changes so that you can start working towards this if your intention is to be able to retire, to be financially secure. The sooner you can do it, the better. Now, I have kids that are in college right now, and so we have conversations around this. They've grown up around it because this is, what I do. So we've always had many conversations around balancing your budget and your money, things we're just never taught. I wasn't taught. I wasn't fortunate enough to come from, money. I've had to learn everything that I've learned, which I'm grateful for now because I have the other perspective. But explaining to them, as soon as they get their first job, how important it is for them to invest in real estate and some different real estate hacking and things that we can look at is really important. Because man, if I would have started at the age that they're going to start, I can only imagine how much further they're going to be at, even my age in retirement. So even teaching our kids is really important. And the sooner that we can do it, the better of an example that we can be for them as well. Any questions so far? I want to check in. Anything on that we talked about? Everybody following, tracking? Any questions?
Love it all.
Awesome. Any other questions that you have as we go along, interrupt me. I want to make sure that you understand. So now we're going to step into the process. What does it even look like to purchase a home, which is the big question, right? So there's a few things that lenders look at, and that's going to be the main things of income, liabilities, asset, and credit. So these are the big pillars of what's going to show what is your ability to repay, which is the biggest question that the lender has, is how likely are you going to be to repay your mortgage, really is what it comes down to. So we're going to look at your income, we're going to look at your debts, we're going to look at your assets, and we're going to look at your credit. So each of those pillars that we look at, we're going to be looking at where are you at, and are there things that we can do to help put you in a better position. Now, a lot of times we think that there's, limitations around what we need in order to move forward. So such as credit score. A lot of people think that we need to have a high credit score in order to purchase. So sometimes I'll have clients that say, you know what, I need to wait until my credit score is here because I want the best interest rate. And then I could show you, we can run the numbers and I could show you, well, it depends on the market that we're going in. If prices are going up and now you wait a year to get your credit score up, you actually pay more. Or if you wait, until interest rates come down, you actually pay more. So depending on the market that you're in, sometimes it makes sense, but oftentimes it would make more sense for us to, if you can afford it, have you purchase a home and work on your credit. And then when rates come down, put you into a better interest rate. We have programs that go to such a low credit score now that there's so many opportunities that they're trying to support home ownership. We can actually go even lower than these on the VA. I need to update this here, but there's so many different programs and options. We don't want that to be a hurdle, but we do walk through what can we do to improve your credit. So let's say that you qualify right now, even with your credit score. My goal is to save you money and protect your wealth. So we're going to be working still on a credit plan, because my goal is how much higher can we get your credit score before you find a home and purchase, so that you get the best terms that are possible. So we do a review of your credit, but it's not usually something that's going to hold you back unless you've had recent derogatory. And then we work on a plan to figure out, okay, what do we need to do and how long is it going to take you? And here's your path. Also talk about debt to income ratio. That's a big one. Debt to income ratio simply is just going to be, how much money do you have coming in? How much debt do you have going out? And when I say debt going out, that's going to take into consideration anything that shows up on your credit report. So any auto loans, credit cards, student loans, things like that are going to show up on your credit, is what we're going to be using for qualifying. Meaning that we're going to take your before taxed income against your debts. And then it gives you a ratio, which is your debt to income ratio. And it varies on how much your debt to income ratio can be, depending on the program that we're looking at and many other factors. So again, we look at your credit, we look at your debts, we look at your income. Now, when it comes to income, there are different things that we can consider and not consider, which when we talk and we do an initial consultation, we go over that. And if you have specific questions, you can always reach out and we can talk through that as well. The other portion of your assets is for down payment and closing costs. So when you purchase a home, depending on the program that we're looking at, you're going to have a percentage of the purchase price as a down payment, which is going to be your investment into the purchase. So let's say that you're a first-time home buyer, seems like most of you are, and you are looking to purchase a property. We're going to do a comprehensive review to see what programs are best for you. Is it going to be a conventional loan with 3% of the purchase price as a down payment? Is it going to be an FHA with 3.5% down? If you're a VA and you have a veteran eligibility, which is an amazing loan that if you know anybody that has them, have them reach out to me. There's so much misconception around it. I'm military housing certified. My husband's military, so I'm super passionate about it. But VA is 0% down, so you don't have to come up with any funds. There's some other programs, down payment assistance, that can help get you into a home. USDA, which is a rural property loan that helps you get into the home. So many different options that we figure out where you are and what's going to be best for you. And we look at the pros and cons of each of those. But a down payment is a percent based on the loan amount. And again, we may have down payment assistance if you're a first-time home buyer that helps get you into the home with minimal out-of-pocket. There are purchase costs that the buyer is responsible for. Usually you're looking at between 1.5% and 2.5% of the purchase price as closing cost, which is for your third-party fees, which are like title, escrow, appraisal, recording, notary, all of the fees with the purchase. A lot of times people are like, I can't believe your fees are that high. No, lending fees are actually very minimal compared to all the fees that go into it and reserves that are required, which we walk through. So the biggest thing to know is we have minimum down payment options that we can look at. And there are some things that we can do potentially let's say you have enough for the down payment, but not the closing costs. There are some strategies that we have that we can use to potentially help cover those closing costs as well, that we talk through depending on the market that we're in. So the asset portion is, how much money do you have available that you can use towards the purchase? It does have to be verified assets, meaning it can't be mattress money. So if you're thinking about buying a home and it's literally in the mattress, put it in your bank account. It needs to be there for at least 2 months, seasoned. We can't have any cash deposits that we can't source to be able to use towards the purchase. You can use gift funds from family. You can use 401k withdrawals. You can cash out your stocks. You can use inheritance. You can sell a car as long as we track it and use the funds. A lot of flexibility around what we can use. It just has to be verifiable funds. So pretty easy when it comes to looking at the assets and figuring out what it is that we can and can't use, but you can always call and we can talk through that information as well. Pretty simple. So as we talked about many different programs, I could talk all day on the differences between them, but just know that we're here to be able to provide the best options for you. And it's not one of those things where it's black and white. That's why we need to have a comprehensive consultation to figure out specific for you where you're at and what's going to make sense for you. So Kristen, what is the first step? So really what you need to do is you got to figure out your budget. You know, the first conversation I have with clients when I talk to them, I ask my several questions of, you know, what have you set aside to be able to use towards the purchase? What is your budget for your mortgage payment, including property taxes and insurance? Most people don't have any clue, which is normal, because if you haven't had a mortgage, you don't really know what to expect, you know, and you're just like, well, you know, my rent's been $2,500 and that's been okay. So I guess $2,500 is probably what I can do. And we know that buying a home is an investment. So you're going to have to put more money into it, but you're the only one that can really figure out your budget. I could tell you what you qualify for, but I don't know your lifestyle. So I always say, what's your lifestyle budget? What I would encourage you to do if you haven't is take my course, which I'm going to be giving out to you guys. The first step in the course is simply setting up a budget. So if you haven't set up a budget yet, what you want to do is go in, put all your liabilities, all of your income, figure out what your income is. And then what's your leftover expenses? What are you willing to give up? What are you not willing to give up? Which is a hard conversation, because get it. And we don't want to give up what we've been used to, right? We don't want to change our lifestyle. But at some point in our life, we realize that we really want to have a retirement. We really want to leave a legacy for our family. And that's more important than the additional things that we're doing. So when you're in a place that you decide, okay, I'm ready to shift my focus into different things, then it's amazing how much money you could find and free up within your budget. Me as well. Like if we're trying to really go towards something and we sit down and look at our budget, there's a lot that we can give up. So understanding your lifestyle payment, meaning when I buy a home, here's my income, here are my non-negotiables, here are the things I'm not willing to give up, here's how much money I have left, is really important. Now, there are some other things to consider that we're going to talk about, such as tax benefits and things like that. It's going to help your income as well that you have to consider. But understanding your budget is very, very important. So that would be step one. And then once you figure out your budget of what you're comfortable with, then you meet with a loan consultant, a mortgage advisor such as myself, and have an initial conversation. That's where we ask a lot of questions, figure out what we're doing. Is it the right time to start the process to look into, you know, starting your home buying plan? If it is, that's when we start the pre-approval. The pre-approval means you provide all your documentation. I have all of your information. We verify everything. I will tell you what you can qualify for. We look at mortgage strategies, creative strategies, what's going on in the market, work together as a team to make sure you have the best options. And then you can effectively start looking at properties and putting in offers at that point. So you go home shopping with your real estate agent, you find a property, we reconnect, go over the numbers again, make sure you're good with them. They accept your offer. Now you're purchasing that home. Depending on the contract, you have so much time to purchase that home. We walk you through, hold your hand, make sure that you know exactly what's going on. That's when we can lock in your interest rate. When we lock in your interest rate, that means that you're guaranteed that rate. You know what to expect. So there's no surprises at closing. You know what your payment's going to be. You're good. And then you get your keys and you own your home. So it's really, really a simplified process. It seems a lot harder. And I know it's because we're so scared. It's so, you know, anxiety around, you know, something different and the steps that we're taking. But that's why you meet with the right team. You meet with a mortgage consultant. We strategize. You know exactly what to expect. So now you say, okay, Kristen, that's great, but how do I set up a budget? Like, what am I even budgeting for? So included in your mortgage payment, which is what we're trying to figure out what you can afford, is going to be several different things. We call it your PITI. Sometimes you'll hear people call it the PITI, which is funny. But you have included in that, which is your total payment, your principal, which is how much of your payment that you make each month is paying down your loan balance, the interest, how much you're paying the lender to borrow the money, property taxes, which are required when you purchase a home, and then you have insurances that are required, such as homeowners hazard fire insurance. Now, if you're in California, depending on where you purchase, everywhere, but specifically in different areas, your hazard fire homeowners insurance, it's the same thing, people call it different things, can vary, and it's dependent on how big of a fire risk is your property. So oftentimes I'll have people that will say, you know, we're good, we're going to purchase at a lower price point because we're looking in Grass Valley. For you, those of you that are around the area, you know Grass Valley is a lot of trees, very rural, very high fire. So is Forest Hill. And so the home prices are lower because your hazard fire insurance premium is going to be higher, which is part of your affordability. So although you may get the home a little bit cheaper, your payment for your insurance is higher. So actually your overall payment tends to be higher buying in rural property. So some things to keep in mind as far as areas and locations that you're looking at that we need to consider as well, that could be really important. So when you were looking at the budgeting, that's what you're trying to figure out is, here's the total payment that I can afford towards this payment. Now, does not include water, sewage. So you need to make sure that you're keeping a little bit of room in your affordability for the extra expenses that you're going to have to pay if you haven't been paying them already in rent and used to paying them. That needs to be something that you're budgeting for as well, which is really important. So this is here is my access to my financial website. You can scan it, take down this website. You go in. Number one, the first video goes over budgeting. It has this worksheet that you can download. You just fill it all out. It's really cool because you really should track your net worth over time. And this helps you do it at the bottom. It's really simplified. So they have all the apps and stuff, but this is really easy that you could just sit down once a month and be able to go through and look at all the information and really dial in where you're at, what you can afford moving forward. So like I said, as far as the process goes, it's easy. You get pre-qualified means we have an initial conversation, we verbally go over your information, then we get you pre-approved means you provided all your documentation, I verified it, then you go house shopping, find a home, and then purchase your home. So really streamlined process, but there is a difference between pre-qualified and pre-approved. Pre-qualified just means that I talked with the lender, and we get this all the time, I talked with the lender, they said that I'm pre-approved at $500,000. The next question is, well, did you give them documentation? Because if you didn't supply documentation, it doesn't mean that you're lying, but oftentimes how a lender is going to view your income and your assets could be completely different than what can actually be usable. So it's really important that you don't start home shopping until you've provided all your documentation and reviewed it with a mortgage advisor, because not all loan officers are created equal. There's a lot of newer or less detailed, I guess would be the word. And then you get in the contract and find out that things weren't taken care of, and you definitely don't want to be in that position. So check in. Any other questions on anything we've gone over? Any input? Any feedback? Everything good? I think so. We'll continue on. So a couple other things that we want to consider when we're moving forward to is going to be, what is it that you need in order to do the pre-approval? So we know that we're going to look at the income. What documentation is going to be needed? So really, you're going to be looking at a couple different things. You're going to be looking at your, you know, if you're a W-2 employee, you're going to be looking at W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements, pretty simple. Now, if we end up in a position to where you are looking at self-employment, rental income, then we're going to need tax returns, and then it's a little bit more in depth from there. But keeping in mind that from all of that information that it's just moving on here. There we go. That you supply all the information and make sure that it's all correct up front, because it's really important to ensure that all of the information is done correctly, because you don't want to be in a position, like I said, that you're in contract to purchase and then now you can't qualify, which is one of the worst things that can happen. So and now we're looking at, and I'm trying to, sorry, for some reason it went off the screen to where I'm trying to share it. And I'm going to have to move it to the other side. For some reason it moved off. That's all right. We're going to do it this way. All right. See if we can do it this way now. There we go. I don't know what happened there, but we're back. Okay, so you want to supply all your information. Now, do's and don'ts. If you are looking to purchase a property, really, really, really important. Do not co-sign. Do not open any accounts. Do not close any accounts. Do not change jobs if it's not going from a standard 40-hour full-time job to another 40-hour full-time without talking with a mortgage advisor first if your intention is to purchase, because it could impact your approval and it could impact you being able to purchase a home for a while. And then, of course, make sure you make your payments on time, no collections, things like that, which is really important for your credit. Make sure you are researching those that you work with. Now, you can research me online and you'll see I have great reviews. I've been in business a long time. I work by referral, and my goal is always to make sure that I get a 5-star experience from my clients. So you'll see that out there. But it is really important because, like I said, not all lenders are created equal. And the intention, the work that they put in, their availability, how they show up for you is going to impact the entire experience for you, as well as where you're at. Now, I'm a broker, which means I shop over 80 different lenders for you, which means that you're going to get the best interest rates and pricing. Not all lenders are the same when it comes to pricing, because if you go to a bank or a direct lender and they have their interest rates, they have to take into account the entire profit and loss of their company, which goes into the interest rates that they quote you. That doesn't happen on the broker side because I don't have a huge profit and loss that I have to take in there. So most of the time, if not always, you will find with a broker that shops mortgages, you're going to end up with the best pricing options that you can have. And that's why I'm on this side, is I'm really about creating wealth and saving my clients money. But definitely look at the reviews of everybody that you're working with. Also, making sure you're choosing the right team is huge, huge, huge. Making sure you're with the right team that's doing all the things to get your offer accepted once you're in contract or once you have a pre-approval to start shopping, as well as going to be there for you after the loan closes. You want someone that's going to pick up the call, that's going to help you when you have issues. You get a report from me every single month if you work with me. You get access to all my webinars, my reviews, how to build wealth. All of that's important for long-term sustainability when you're looking at building out your long-term investment wealth. So also I want to show you here, I'm going to move it off here so we can look at the screen. Big question is, when should you buy, right? So first off, you should buy when you're in a position that you can make the mortgage payment. Like, first and foremost, you need to be able to afford it. You know, you don't want to barely make it. And I know there's a lot of lenders right now that are saying, hey, you're going to be able to refinance in 6 months. Do not make a decision under the assumption that you are going to refinance in 6 months. Now, the Feds met, and our Fed chair, Jerome, believe it or not, is actually an estate attorney. He is not economist, or not a state attorney, he's an attorney. He is not an economist, doesn't really have anything around real estate specifically. So his number one focus is to lower inflation, because he doesn't want to be known as the person that was left with high inflation. So that's good in the sense that we are going to see interest rates come down. Every time inflation comes down, rates come down. However, it also means that we're probably going to see rates a little bit higher for a little bit longer. If I were to guess, I think that we're probably going to see rates higher until about 2025. We'll probably start seeing them come down. But you always want to make sure, whatever structure you're doing in the financing, that you can afford that mortgage long term. Now, the good news is, for most people, your income goes up each year, so you're going to be able to, slowly be able to afford it more. But you need to make sure, first and foremost, you can afford it. Now, beyond that, if you're renting, every month that you rent, you're losing money. So if you're renting and it's $2,750 a month, that's $33,000 in a year that you could be investing that you will have no return on in a year. Not to mention, if you were making a mortgage payment for that year, you would have paid down your loan balance, which is part of your equity now. So for instance, with this home purchased at $500,000, if you were to purchase it today versus waiting in a year where they think appreciation is going to be, you would have lost $4,580. This is how much you would have paid down of your loan in the month or in the year that you now have in your equity as part of your savings in your home, known as your equity. But you would have also lost out on the appreciation. So if you waited to buy this home for a year, you would have lost $34,000 between appreciation and amortization, but also the $33,000 that you wasted in rent. So it's a pretty big impact as far as timing for buying real estate. I know we probably all heard, if we go back to school, we probably all heard all of the compound interest, right? So the sooner you start it, the more that you end up making. And you look at the stats and the data and you see it where the person can start and they can invest $100 a month from their 20s and they can be a millionaire, and they're in a pretty quick time frame with it compounding over time. Versus if you have someone that waits into their 40 and they start saving, how much they would have to save to hit that million is ridiculous, right? Because of compound interest. It's the same with real estate, meaning that if you do it sooner, it's compounded because of the amount that you're paying down in your principal and the appreciation amount that goes up, not to mention the tax write-off benefits that you're going to get for owning a home as well. So the sooner that you could purchase, the better, but affordability is important. Making sure that you can afford the home and that you're working with someone that's looking at that for you is going to be really big. You don't want to end up in a situation to where you're not, affording the home, which is worse. So I wanted to leave this quote here. And I love this because this is from Franklin Roosevelt. I have it up on my wall too. It says, real estate cannot be lost or stolen, nor can it be carried away. Purchased with common sense, paid for in full, and managed with reasonable care, it is about the safest investment in the world. And that still stands true. So just like I showed you in all of our numbers and stats and data and appreciation over time, we've had a very small window of the red where the appreciation went down, not up. It's a long-term investment, but it's the biggest return on investment that you're ever going to find.